Hello, everyone. Welcome. And hold on a second. It is not. Let me see if it's actually streaming to YouTube. It is. Yay. Okay.
Yay!
So I was worried at first because it said waiting for Christina Wald, which, it's not unusual, but
I
but
think
welcome.
waiting for Amy Bogard is a pretty common phenomenon as well. So,
Yes, we both have the waiting thing. So um, welcome, Amy, and we are starting this new podcast called The Sketch Wagon, which I had it wrong in the title, and we will fix that. And I want Amy to talk a little bit about why we decided to call it The Sketch Wagon, and we'll talk a little bit about why we love sketching and traveling and what the show is going to be about and how often we'll be doing it and all the good stuff. So Amy,
yeah.
tell us a little bit about you came up with this great idea of the logo.
So I have always had a deep fascination and appreciation for sheep herding
Mhm.
and just the the lore of sheep herding. And I've read a lot of Terry Pratchett, who talks a lot about sheep herding. And there's just something really kind of romantic about the little wagons, the little huts that they would use out in the fields to sort of um, to stay in shelter, but also move around and do their job. And there, I've always just kind of romanticized that concept of a little wagon, a sort of on the go place to get in out of the rain, have a cup of tea, make some sketches, whatever. And I feel like the symbolism of that little wagon feels like this space that we might be trying to create here in this podcast live stream plan thing that we have going. It's like it's not a how to, it's maybe more of a why, and like a sitting down and kind of unpacking, like over a cup of tea, what we do when we go out and sketch, and how we approach travel through the lens of making a bit of art along the way. And just the symbol of the shepherd's hut, I just, you know, it's a shout out to old Terry Pratchett and Tiffany Aching and all of those characters. So my nerd is showing, but there'll be more of that, I'm sure.
Oh, I think that's a really great analogous symbol for sort of a nomad style lifestyle choice where you end up traveling a lot. And of course, sketching is a great way to take it in. I think we talked about before how you see so many videos and you see so many people posting photos about it and how sketching a place is sort of slowing down and observing it in a different way. And before we get in, because I know we have a lot to talk about with that, but let's go ahead and introduce ourselves for people. I mean, I assume most people that watch this probably know us, but like let's introduce ourselves and maybe talk about where we're going next. So Amy, why don't you start? Tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're going next,
Sure.
and we'll start from there.
Okay. So, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Amy Bogard, and I teach sketch travel workshops, but really kind of focusing in on the concept of the travel journal, like the taking notes of where we are in a place, and usually it's beautiful places. So I have trips coming up to a family vacation to Maine, um, a trip for band camp down to North Carolina. But my next work trip is over to Ireland, where I've gathered a group of Americans, and we're going to go over and paint in Ireland and sketch and slow things down. And there's a lot to see in Ireland, and so we sort of stay in one area and really kind of dig deep, and we cover all the sort of traditionally quintessentially Irish sorts of things, like rugged coastlines and castles and musical sessions and that kind of stuff, but we do it in kind of a small area. So Ireland is up next
What
in
are the dates for
that
that?
realm. That is later this summer. I'll be going over on the 7th of August, and we gather as a group on the 9th or something. I don't have my calendar right in front of me, but yeah.
Oh, how
So,
exciting. And can
yes.
people still sign up for it? I know it's late, but I mean, airfares are really reasonable right now.
Airfares are really reasonable. I would say if you're interested and wanted to come along last minute, I can totally reach out and see if the inn has space. That's really what it boils down to is because we hold spaces until a certain point and then we let it go so the hotel can sell those spaces. But if there's room available, we could certainly make it happen if there's room available. So, but
Yeah.
I will say that registration for next year's classes in Antigua, Guatemala, and Taos, New Mexico, I'm accepting registration for those already, and the dates are all on my website. So,
Yes, we'll have everything in the show notes, links to Amy's beautiful new website, and you can sign up for stuff there. And, all that will be in the show notes.
yeah.
And my name's Christina Wald, and this is my cat Miffy, who has decided to join the podcast.
I know Miffy is part of the podcast today.
Yeah, so she doesn't get to travel though. But she
Oh,
does like she does like it when I'm talking and doing podcasts and anything with my webcam. But I am an illustrator and an urban sketcher, and I do teaching. I have taught illustration college level for 10 years, and now I do travel logs. I also illustrate children's books, and I really have had actually, I credit Amy with getting me into urban sketching because I went on her house workshop in 2012, which was so much fun. And since then, I've been doing a lot of traveling. My next trip is going to be, actually, it's going to be a local trip. We're going to Vestal, New York to visit some family over 4th of July weekend. And then my next trip after that is Sketcher Fest, which is in Edmonds, Washington, which is really exciting. I'm going to be teaching a workshop and also giving a lecture about travel logs, which each one is sort of a new adventure. I just finished my one to Romania and sent it to the printer, and it was really interesting because I was looking at my first travelogue I did, and I was thinking, why did I make this type so small? And I was thinking, so I made it quite a bit larger. Maybe that's why it went to 72 pages. So it added several pages to it. But it was one of those things, as you do publishing, you kind of learn, how do I make this work better and everything. But anyway, my
yeah.
next work trip is going to be to Romania. We're going to leave on September 17th, and it goes to October 1st, and it will be going primarily around Transylvania. We stay usually 2 to 3 days a site and visit some of our favorite towns in Transylvania. It's really hard because Ioana and I have so many favorite places in Romania, and we can't fit them all in one trip. I mean, it's like, why, it would be great if we could go to Constanza or go to Sapansa or,
Or
Aradia
stay
or
for
all these.
6 months, or
I
stay for
know,
six
yeah,
months.
maybe if we ever do some sort of longer thing, but it's hard but Transylvania is nice because the cities we go to, which are Sibiu, Brasov, Bucharest, Sighișoara, all of those towns, Hunadora, all those towns are sort of around in a circle and easy. You don't spend as much time in the van. Ioana is a good friend of mine who basically organizes and arranges everything. She is actually, if you're a nature journal enthusiast, she actually is a plant biologist and has
Ooh.
taught for over 20 years biology specifically about plants. And she has a YouTube channel about using different herbs and growing plants, and she's
You'll have to
really
put
a
her YouTube channel in the
I will put a
notes.
link in it. And
Okay,
she
great.
arranges everything and is used to taking people around the country. And she's taken students there from the universities that she taught from. She just retired. And so we kind of work as a duo. We work with the sketchers, and then sometimes we have people that aren't sketchers that she does stuff with, which I'm sure, Amy, you have a similar thing when you have some people that aren't into sketching. You kind of do alternative stuff with them
We
so that they're
do.
entertained.
We do have companion options for, like, if people want to come as a couple and
Yes.
one of the couple is really heavy into sketching and making art and learning all that stuff, and the other person's like, I just want to come along for the ride. We do have companion options for that. So,
Yes, yeah, and I
mm,
think that that's really handy because a lot of couples like to travel together,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
but but we have a lot of fun putting it together, and she arranges and vets all the hotels. And as a matter of fact, at the end of our last trip in 2024, which is covered in the travelogue, we visit a couple places that we're planning on for future trips just to see what they're like, so we don't show up at some place and say, "Oh, this isn't what I expected at all." I mean, you
That's
never know any place
something
in the world. Be
that
careful.
is something is I find very important is if I, like, when, for example, the Ireland trip, I always wanted to go to Ireland, but never had the right place. And I have made
Yes.
it a point to never bring a group to a place I haven't slept myself and had their food and whatnot. So I had the opportunity to attend a wedding in Ireland, and I had a lead on this place where we stay, and I was able to go spend a few days with my family to kind of check it out and make sure it was worth bringing people to, and it was fabulous. And so now this will be our fourth year
Wow.
doing this class. So we're going to do it again next year. We don't have the dates quite ready, but we should once I get back later
Oh,
in
that's so
August.
exciting.
Hmm.
Hopefully
Yeah.
one day I will attend the Ireland trip in the
I
stars
know,
when I
then you'll
want,
have the
because I love to.
trifecta because you came to
I know.
Guatemala.
Yes, Guatemala was really wonderful too.
It's a good
But
trip.
yeah, that is a really great trip. So let's talk a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about why we're doing this podcast and why we value sketching as part of the travel experience. And what do you have to say to start with that, Amy?
Oh gosh, it's so big. I think that both you and we've had multiple conversations offline just about and online with your Sketchy Talk podcast, but
Yes, yes.
it's something that I think will eventually warrant a book. I think because I feel like it's real easy to glaze over this concept and think, oh, it's nice to draw some pictures when you're in a new place, or it's nice to slow down and make a sketch of a place, or it's nice to, whatever. You can sort of, like, it can be baseline art class. But I really think, especially now with AI coming down the pike, that we really need to hold on to the stuff that makes us more human in the world. And it is an interesting thing when you pick up a few tips. You don't have to be an artist, quote unquote.
No, no.
It's really less about making a pretty picture and more about learning to see and learning to really see what's in front of you versus the symbol of what we think we see. And that comes with drawing. And it's and like with anything, if you begin it, you might be clumsy at first, but if you keep going, you'll find your own visual voice in it. And it's just the best souvenir of a place. It's such a lovely way to experience the place, because often people, even if they don't have your same language, people will come up and kind of wonder about what you're doing. It's a great way to meet people out on the square, in like in Guatemala, we'll be in the Central Park drawing, and suddenly we'll be surrounded by a bunch of little kids who are just fascinated with what we're doing. And I've had people who then will hand their sketchbook over to a kid and say, do you want to draw a picture? And then you have
Oh,
this
that's
lovely
great.
little memory of this little kid who drew a picture in their sketchbook. And so it's just a way of connecting, and it's a cool way to meet other people who don't just want to, you know go to Acapulco, drink a ton of drinks, take a ton of pictures on their iPhone, and then come home. Like, it's
Yes.
a richer, deeper way to travel. It is,
It's
even if
immersive, really.
it's very immersive. And even if you don't get a finished, quote unquote, whatever that even means, finished sketch, if you get the bones of something down in person, you will be able to finish it later, and it will have that sort of flavor of the place you were in. And I have no problem with using the telephone or a camera to capture source imagery to finish a drawing later. I have no problem with that, which I know is kind of, that's a big conversational piece, among like urban sketchers, is like, how much do you
Capture
do
it
and
while you're there.
capture it
Yes.
while you're there, which is great. But sometimes time and weather, and maybe you're traveling with grumpy teenagers who don't want to sit down with mom and dad and draw again. So it just depends. And
Well,
I
and
think,
greater sketchbook practice too. Like, for example, you might have some urban sketches in your sketchbook, but you might have
yep,
other stuff too. Like, a lot of people collage
yep,
and put their tickets in there. It's a great place to store a lot of the ephemera that you get when you're
yeah.
traveling,
And I like to
tickets,
have, yeah,
postcards, stuff like that.
I like to have a what I call a ta-da list, because
Hmm.
we go through our lives with these to-do lists every day. And so when I'm traveling, I like to have a to-do list where I just kind of bullet point how a day went. So if you've had a busy day
Oh,
of
I love
traveling
that.
and you didn't get a chance to draw anything, you're traveling, whatever, you can kind of take note of this is what happened, this is who I met, this is where I was, etc. And then you can go back and kind of piece it all together in your sketchbook. So,
It's so smart to keep track of stuff like that too, because I found when I expand and do my travel logs, when I'm writing on the road, and it's very individual because some people their sketchbook is more of a journal and they write a lot. And I know
mhm.
you like to write a lot, and there's a couple other people I know that write pages and pages. And I find when I go back through my sketchbooks, it's more like bullet points. We went here. There's like no elaboration. And so then
Yeah.
when I'm putting together the travel log, I have to elaborate a lot more than, and I've been trying to get better about writing, and I've been partially successful, partially failing because
Well,
it's not as natural for me to write a lot, but I'm trying to get better about doing that.
Well, often one of the things I do a lot in New Mexico is because we have a dedicated classroom space in New Mexico, and so I have a rotating whiteboard situation where I put quotes up
Oh,
on the
nice.
board that so it's other people's words about New Mexico, about making art, about slowing down. So if you personally aren't comfortable jotting notes in your sketchbook and all you want to do is maybe capture snapshots or ephemera or whatever, but you can also take other people's words and you can look them up, quotes about different places. And then I like to use a typewriter
Hmm.
and as like a different
Yeah, I
kind of
love that
text.
technique.
Yeah, and then just glue those in, and then you've got this kind of other layer to the impressions of a place because every place is going to have a different vibe, basically.
I mean,
From
that's one thing I always like to talk about is the five senses. What do you smell? What do you hear?
yes,
And that might be a good way to kind of, if you're having trouble writing, and is maybe before you start your sketch, maybe list out like what do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see? What do you
yep.
feel?
What's the
Is it
weather?
warm? Yeah, is it warm?
Yeah.
What's the weather like? And that
And if
actually,
you're in
that's
with
actually
a
good advice
different,
for myself.
yeah, well, and also if you're in with like a different language, if you're at a place with a
Yes.
different language, for example, in Ireland, you can write a Tache Grianver, which means it is sunny, and draw
Hmm.
a little sunshine or whatever. So you can learn little phrases in, Romanian or whatever, and add those to your book and begin to kind of learn a little bit of the language, which is cool. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
that's a great that's and learning little phrases like that kind of add to the experience, and
Hmm.
writing some of the stuff in your book really helps. And I think what do you think you get out of, like, when you go to places like Ireland or Guatemala? What is it that attracts you to those places as opposed to, I mean, any kind of travel? Like, I mean, obviously Taos is in the US. What do you think attracts you to going back to those places, and what are some places you haven't been to yet that you'd like to go to?
Well, I've got my eye on your Italy trip. I want to go there
Ooh.
at some point if the stars align and are, like we don't bump too close up together. I really would love to go to Italy. Um, but the reason I go back to these same, well, it's multitude of reasons, but I I think that what makes a place is not only its rugged beauty, which I really love going to kind of far flung places, and I love places with a bit of culture. So, like in New Mexico, you have the Pueblo culture and the the great art history kind of realm, and then in Guatemala, you have just the textiles and the Maya history. It's just incredible. And Antigua is a World UNESCO Heritage Site, as is Taos Pueblo, which is awesome. And then in Ireland, it's the music and the folklore and the myths and all that kind of stuff. So I love all of that. So I love deep sense of culture, but I keep going back because you over time you develop relationships with people at the places you visit. And so over time you become, it's like a homecoming. Every time I go to any of these three places, it's like, in fact, each one of them have a tradition of saying welcome home, which always
Oh.
kind of gives my heart a little nudge. It's really nice.
Oh, that's really
So
neat.
yeah, so I think while it's great to travel the world and see all the new places and get great photographs and paintings made and whatever, there is something to be said about finding those places that you think, oh, I would definitely come back here again. And so far, I have yet to get tired of Taos, Antigua, and Ireland. I mean, I feel like I could live in any of those places to a certain extent. So
Hmm.
it's really about the relationships, but the people that you wind up meeting. And we've got lovely people like you have your friend Iwana, who
Hmm.
has her home over there and knows people and has those relationships. And I think that's one of the best things about some of these trips is, like, I always make sure that I've got, I call them the boots on the ground, like people who
Yes.
you could call in an emergency, or or people who can kind of give you that backstage pass to a certain
Yes.
extent. So you don't feel so much like a tourist. I mean, it's great to feel like a tourist, to see new things and all that, but it's also nice to feel like somebody's got your back when you're in a new place.
Oh
So
yeah, in Romania, we've met so many really nice artists that will sketch with
yeah.
us, and it's really fun to meet them. And we saw Muger's studio last time we were there in 24, and it's just really interesting to see their lifestyle. Romania is a very cultural
Hmm.
country, a lot of writers, a lot of artists, and it is really fun to hang around with them. And they're just always very welcoming. And there's some really talented artists there too. And I think it's probably true for you of Ireland, not just for sketchers, but also musicians. Like you have a group of musicians that you probably play with too when you're there.
Yeah, yeah, because I play a bit of Irish music, and totally at like a low level. I'm not at all a professional or anything like that. But I in the Irish music tradition, you can be an average hack, and as long as you're polite and relatively humble, you can kind of go anywhere in the world and play Irish tunes with other people. And so over time, especially in Ireland, where we visit in this town called Ballyvorney, there's a place there, the Mills Inn, where we stay, and it's the same crew of people that come
Oh, nice.
every Friday night to do their weekly session, and they are so welcoming and so kind. And it's the same way with fellow artists there. And we know some people that we have come and visit with our group who are artists and
Oh, that's
performers,
really
and it's
wonderful.
yeah, it's really great. So you develop those relationships with people, so that's why I go back to the same places
Well,
over
and
and
that's
over.
one thing I don't, that's a thing that, and I don't think anyone should ever have to qualify saying, oh, well, I'm not a professional X,
That
because
is a
I feel
very
like,
good point.
and I kind of wonder if that's like a capitalist thing where it's like, well, if you can't do something and make money at it, you shouldn't do it at all.
That's actually, I mean, I think we could do an entire episode on the concept of, like, being productive. That's one of the things that I really love about this work is that, people are always asking me, do you sell your work? And occasionally I do, I'll do commissions or whatever. But honestly, to me, it's more about not selling it, like
Agreed.
doing it just because it makes me feel good. It puts a bit of beauty in the world, but isn't for sale. It's trapped in the pages of a little book, and that it just feels very radical to.
It really is.
It really is.
We've
I
talked
mean, in
about that
this
before.
in this day and age where everybody needs to make a buck and everybody's trying to get attention on. I mean, look at us, we're doing a little live stream, and who knows if anybody's going to see it, but it's just really, we're all vying for attention in the world. But this practice, for all we want people to come with us and do, I would have a sketchbook in everybody's hands if I could. I think the world would be a better place. But to do that for yourself and no one else, you don't have to show anybody what you're
Oh, I
doing.
probably show about half the sketches I make. Like
Right.
I'm really bad about when I'm traveling about actually even posting to social media because I'll be like, I'll realize, oh my gosh, because you're so busy and caught up in it, like a
Yeah.
lot of times, and then it's hard to take good pictures of it. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times, I mean, I still haven't posted probably half of my stuff from Italy because I've just been
Yeah.
so busy since I got home. But, sometimes I don't ever post any of some of the sketches that I do. And that's fine. I mean, because
Yeah.
part of it is the experience and it's not necessarily that it's for everybody. I mean,
Right.
it is something that's truly for you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be. I think that there's people get caught up on like, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this, or and not just art but music and any sort of
Everything.
other, and
Mhm.
yeah, everything, cooking. I mean, anything you can think of that people feel like, well, if I don't have an expertise at it, I don't want to do it. And I think that that is almost sort of a new, and I don't know, I'll have to, I feel like I need to research this because I feel like this is new and perhaps a capitalist feel that, well, what if you want to just do something for fun? What if you just want to
Mhm.
play music badly for fun, you know,
Well,
or whatever?
that's one of the things that I really appreciate about especially the Irish music or folk music in general, is that you don't have to be like a good singer if you want to sing
Mhm.
a song at an Irish session. You want to have a good story, but you don't have to
Yes.
be a good singer, quote unquote. And to play a tune, you just come with honest human expression. And if you come to the table with honest human expression and a bit of humility to join the group, you're welcomed with open arms at most public sessions. It's really remarkable, and I would say that that's one of the things. I've been doing the music for a number of years. I followed my kid into it, and the sketching I've just kind of always done. But the more I've sort of unpacked it in my mind professionally, like how do I teach it? Why do I teach it? um those two things, the urban sketcher or the group of sketchers or what have you, and and a group of people playing music at a session just for fun, like it's not a show. You're like, when you go to an Irish music session, it's usually the musicians are facing one another. They're not facing a crowd. They're not on stage.
So it's more of an experience than
Yeah,
a.
it's a social thing. You play some music, and then you have some chit chat, and then maybe someone else has a song, and then you have some chit chat. It's a very social thing, and I've noticed that that's a very similar thing when you go out sketching.
Yes.
Is you have a group of people, you go out and you make sketches for a while. Sometimes they go in little small gaggles and chit chat with one another or not along the way. There's something really nice about sitting quietly next to someone,
Mhm.
and then you all come together at the end and share your drawings and talk about what your favorite thing was or whatever. And there's something really missing in our lives these days socially, that kind of village mentality of bringing everybody together
I
for
totally
something
agree.
just for fun,
So
just for no reason other than it's fun. And
So in
I love
Ireland,
that.
do a lot of families play together and sing together? Because it seems like that's something that used to happen. I mean, before television and stuff, people used to, because there wasn't a lot of entertainment, so they might sing together and play
Yes.
together as families. It wasn't so much like I'm going to be a pro musician. It was more, I mean,
Yeah.
people would play music to entertain each other and would sing and dance, like, anyone that watches a Jane Austen movie sees that they have the balls and someone's playing music and they're all dancing and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
um
there's actually this great group of sisters and
mhm.
then nieces and daughters. I don't know quite who's who in the zoo with them, but it's this amazing group of women. And last year they were all in town for something, and they got to singing at the session, and it was amazing. Each one of them had a song throughout the
Oh,
course of the
wow.
night, and they would get the whole crowd going, and it was just unbelievable. And they were all related, so they had all been singing these songs together for decades, if not
Mhm.
generations. And so it was really kind of cool to witness that, they might have been in town for a bachelorette party, or a hen do or whatever they call it over there, um but to have all of them, start singing, and they all knew the songs and whatever, and it was really remarkable. So yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to hear if anyone who listens to this can answer in the comments if you sang with your family growing up. Besides, I mean, obviously a lot of people do Christmas carols and stuff.
Right.
But, I remember when I was little, we used to sing at camp all the time and we used to sing, and, no one's expected to be good. And I wonder if we've kind of lost some of this. I mean, I
Well, I
think
think
kids
we
still
have.
sing.
I go to a very nerdy kind of band camp, which
Hmm.
is the week that I attend is specifically for Irish music and Irish adjacent or Celtic music. But they also, it's called the Swananoa Gathering, and they also have contemporary song week, they have folk song week, they have fiddles week. And so
Oh, that
everybody
sounds
kind of,
really cool.
yeah, it's really fun. And it's I read somewhere that when a group of people sing together, that their heartbeats at
Really?
they come into unison. And so I think that you're in a, and this is sort of, again, I think this is sketchbook adjacent. I think
Yes.
what we do when we travel and we sketch, and for me with the music and everything, it is all about, I'm chasing after just being a better human. And I think that when I'm at band camp or when I'm sitting and sketching, and it does scientifically bring your blood pressure down to sit and sketch, to sit and make anything, to make pottery, to do, like, working with our hands is something that we actually are supposed to do, and we don't do it enough. And that's part of the reason we're all losing our minds. But
Hmm.
yeah, to come together as a group of people, be it a small group on a trip or a larger group, urban sketchers or what have you, it really is a remarkable way to develop community. And I just think, like, anywhere I've gone with urban sketchers, we have our regional summit is always when I'm away in Ireland.
I know. That's such a
But
bummer.
but before that, like before I was going to Ireland, I participated that and taught at the Ohio Regional Summit, and it was great. You just meet the nicest people between the teachers and the participants. It's just really nice people because they all want to do this cool thing that it just helps us become more human. I really
And I think
believe
that's why
that.
it's so popular. I think at Urban Sketchers they just exceeded 500 chapters all over the
Yeah,
world. And the thing that's really fun is if you go to look at different chapters around the world, you all see people holding up their sketchbooks, and it kind of looks the same all over the world. And it shows just how much this practice touches so many
well,
people.
I know, our friend Astrid, who participates in all of this. I think she was over in Paris or something and met some urban sketchers.
Yes, and he just joined us at the zoo. He and his wife joined us at the zoo to sketch
Oh, were they in
before.
town? Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
they came
cool.
in April, right before I left to go to Italy, and it was so
Oh,
wonderful that they hooked up and that they came to sketch here, and that was
yeah,
really fun. I mean, it's a great way to meet people, and you kind of are all on the same page with this.
yeah,
And I think that that level of community is so important. I think a lot of
yeah,
times, especially because I feel like the external media that we're exposed to is actively trying to tear everybody apart and make people in a state of panic all the time.
yeah,
And whether, and we could have a discussion on whether or not that's valid, but I think it's kind of made people go a little bit insane. And I think the thing that's great about sitting down and sketching something is a lot of times I don't even look at my phone. You just sit there and sketch, which is actually bad when we do outings because I've got look at my phone later and I have 10 messages saying, "Where is everybody?"
no,
So
it is very meditative.
yes, mindful sketching, I think, is a like if you do Zen
Yeah,
tangles or something like anything
yeah,
like that that just
it's
calms your mind and body, I think is really important.
I agree. And I think so. We've got what, about 10, 15 minutes left
Yeah,
of this
yeah. I mean, we don't have
conversation.
to be
And
super strict,
no,
but
but
we don't.
I feel like I feel like anybody who's even like sketch curious, who are
I love
like,
that.
I've seen all these people out with their sketchbooks, and I've seen Amy's trips and Christina's trips come across, and I'm curious, I just don't think I could do it or whatever. I like to think that in further episodes we can talk about like favorite supplies,
Oh, I think
base,
that's a great idea. This
like
is,
like
yeah, sort
let's
of our pilot.
let's unpack our, like, maybe we could unpack our kits.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, so unpack our kits and talk about who inspires us as far as like other artists who do this work and whatever. But I really think there's no better way to start than just to begin. And that can be as simple as just like a ballpoint pen and, a notebook. It does
Yeah.
not have to be fancy. It doesn't even have to be watercolor. It can be
Mm-mm.
anything. It can be colored pencils. It can, and I definitely have my opinions about supplies and how I want people to have good supplies, because it's like learning an instrument. If you have a crappy
Exactly.
instrument, you're gonna struggle. But if you have good supplies, it's gonna be easier to make something that feels nice to you. But doubling back around to your original question about like why are we calling it sketch wagon? One other reason is because my sketch kit is an
Oh, I
actual
love that.
wagon. So this is what I keep all of my like to go art supplies in. Um, and I just bring a little book and all my little paints and pencils and pens and things all in that little van, and it has gone around the world.
Oh, that's really great. That's a great looking bag.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
So
I think that I think the important thing if you're interested in sketching, is just to start making marks.
yeah,
Don't worry about like, is this look exactly like what I'm drawing? Just start making marks. And sometimes, I see people that have never sketched before do some amazing work when they just sit down and just start making marks. And maybe you do a mixture of making marks and maybe notes and stuff like that. There's a lot of ways to get into this, and it's a great way, like you said, we were talking about feeling human. And I've talked to people before, and we'll just touch briefly on this, but we'll elaborate in future. We're talking about AI, and a lot of people are like, oh well, with AI, you can produce so much stuff. And it's like, well, the whole point of this is not trying to produce a lot. The whole point of this is the experience of drawing and the experience of looking at it while you're drawing. And the sketch is almost sort of a side effect of this practice. It's not the main goal. I mean, I don't think I'd do it if that was just the main goal. I'm already an illustrator. And the main goal of that, yes, is to do a pretty picture. But the main goal of sketching is to experience the area around you. It's very human. And
it
people
is
used to
very
carry
human.
around notebooks and field guides when there wasn't cameras. As a matter of fact, cameras
Lewis and
kind of
Clark.
lie.
Lewis and
Exactly.
Clark they have beautiful, there's books actually about the illustrations and sketches from the Lewis and Clark trip. There was a great quote by, have you heard of the musician Glenn Hansard, who did like the
Yeah.
Once movie? He had a great thing about when he's singing or making a song, that the performance is like this just trail of like glittery slime behind him. Like
Uh-huh.
he doesn't think so much about the product in the
Yes.
moment. He is in the song in the moment. And I feel that that's the way with sketching. It's
It's the
less
process.
about, yeah, it's more about the process. And mind you, I can make pretty drawings, and I have tricks up my sleeve on helping people improve their own drawing skills. But
Totally.
so that you have something that's nice to leaf through. But I maintain that even if you have a clumsy drawing or a drawing that doesn't feel real good, if you open to that page a year, 5 years from now, you can look at that page and you will know right where you were, and you will know what you were thinking, more than if you were to diarize with words. Like there's something about drawing, even if all you do is a quick contour drawing, which is like tracing the outline
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
whatever. Even if you just do a quick contour drawing,
Which those
if
are
you
great.
were, it's a great practice, yeah. But
Yeah.
if you try to wrap language around it, that's like one step removed. Drawing is like the closest thing we can get to becoming one with the subject. If you
You're
draw
right.
it, that's like one step removed, drawing it. If you
Hmm.
then add language and journaling around it, that's another step removed. Nothing against any of that, but
No.
drawing is a very intimate thing, and it's a very one of my favorite writers is had these lovely books, Frederick Frank, and they were called like the art of seeing, and he had one called Zen drawing, and it was about the concept of when you sit down and draw an apple or a leaf or just some kind of small bit of nature, that you're not drawing an apple or a leaf. You're drawing this particular apple and this particular leaf at this particular moment. And that there's something kind of almost philosophical about that, about that you let the rest of the world fall away and it becomes a communion in the moment between you and whatever the subject is.
And I think that's really important. I think that a lot of times that makes you appreciate where you are and what you're doing, and just take it in. Like you take in what people are doing, what's going on, overheard conversations. I mean, there's so many things that really make it more special. Like when we were just sketching in Italy, at one point we were all sitting down and sketching, and we could hear the people talking about us in Italian because they were talking about Americans, and but they were very appreciative when we finished the sketch. They like clapped. They were really excited about seeing
That's
us
really
sketch there,
great.
and
Well,
you know,
I also think, not to interrupt you, but I also think, to carry on your thought, that the when we draw and sketch in person, even later on when you're not drawing, when, like, I find that if I have a regular sketch practice going, because it ebbs and flows. There's sometimes when I just get too busy or whatever, and I fall away from it for a few weeks. But when I'm really sketching a few times a week or whatever, I
mhm.
am a better observer even when I'm not drawing.
I think that's true. You remember stuff better. Like
Yes, you
you just
bring
take
in
pay attention.
details. Yes, you take in more details, you see more things, you notice more things. It's almost like a gratitude practice or something. You know how
It
they say, like,
is,
if you
yes.
write down 5 things you're grateful for, you're gonna have more to be grateful for. In a way, it's almost like the more you pay attention, the more you pay attention. And I had a grad teacher, in art school, who used to say, pay attention to what you pay attention to,
Mhm.
because it tells you a lot about yourself. Like, people, it's so interesting to go out on a group sketch, like with the urban sketchers, and how everybody chooses something quite different. And
Yes,
even if they choose the same thing, their interpretation of it on paper is very different. And I
I
find that
never knew how people's
fascinating.
brain works. I mean,
Yeah,
circling back to AI, my husband's an engineer and he asked me, "Why don't you ever use AI for this stuff?" And I was like, "AI doesn't see what I see in my head. It can't
yeah,
draw that." I said everything I mean, the stuff I like when I'm doing illustration, the stuff I see is in my head. The stuff that I come up with is in my head, and nothing can duplicate that. And
right.
again, with sketching, it's the practice, and nothing is going to see and interpret things the way you do. I mean,
Right.
you are. This is sort of everything filtered through how this practice is everything filtered through how you observe it,
Yeah.
and only you can do that. It's a unique thing to each. It's like a fingerprint for each person.
I was going to say, it's almost like when you make a phone call to
Exactly.
someone, and and someone picks up, you hear their voice, and you know who they are because you know their voice. We all have a visual voice.
Mhm.
Like, when we allow ourselves to learn to draw and maybe paint a little bit or whatever, you can look at all the drawings, and if you know the people and know their drawings well enough, you can look at those drawings and know whose is whose.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's
it's
that's not
wonderful.
because one is better than the other or any of that carry on.
Mhm.
It's literally just, how do they use colors? What are they drawn to? How big is their pad of paper, etc. It's just so interesting to me how individualistic it can become. And it really is a lovely way to kind of filter out the noise of the world and just concentrate on one thing, which we are
I
woeful
know,
at
it's which is
right
very
now.
hard to yeah, it's very hard to do, and so that's why I think it's, a great way to sort of escape for, a couple hours and just not and just think about just be in the moment. I think that's the big thing. Flow and being in the moment is so important when you're
Yeah, there's
doing
a
this
lot of
practice.
there's a lot of how-tos in the world, like books and YouTube videos about how to reach that state of flow.
Mhm.
How do I get into the flow? Well, it does take practice. And
Mhm.
one way to practice is to sit and draw. And that can be in an urban sketcher setting. It
Or
could
like you
be
said,
on
drawing a
your own,
leaf, doing nature journaling.
doing nature
Um,
journaling. There's a great concept about perpetual nature journals, where you have one book, and then each spread, like when you open up a page, that can be like a 2-week time period in a year, in any given year. And then, so every 2 weeks you do a drawing on one of these pages, and the book takes like about 5 years to finish, because
oh,
you have
that's really cool.
a drawing from the same 2 weeks each year on this same page. And it's kind of a neat way to watch how your drawings change
Mhm.
depending on what paints you're using or your skill level or what you're interested in. And then it takes enough time that you have this lovely collection of impressions from
Oh yeah.
nature in this case, but it could
Or
be
yeah,
anything.
seasons. Yeah, I mean the seasons as they
Hmm.
change. I mean
Yep.
the moon as it changes.
Yeah,
Anything like that I think is really useful.
I agree.
And that's probably a good way to sort of wrap it up. So we're going to,
Yeah.
this is sort of a soft launch. So the first couple months we're going to do one a month, and then maybe like we don't travel as much. Well, you'll be gone in February, but we're going to try
Yeah.
to kind of for a month, for once a month for a while, I think.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
I
And
think that,
then,
and then we'll get some guests on and
yeah,
talk about, like you said, materials. That's a good next one, talking about materials and latest experiences and that sort of thing.
yeah,
Well, our next one, I think we picked some dates, is the beginning of August. We'll put it in the show notes, and
yeah,
I can talk a little bit about what Sketcherfest was like.
yeah,
And
that'd be great. That'd be
yeah, and
great.
I'll give a report on that, and we'll have guests in the future, but we're keeping this super casual. And I'm really glad you joined me, Amy. Do you have anything further to say before we stop the
Not,
stream?
not really. I'm excited about this because, like I said, I feel like this is this is a really big conversation to have a relatively important time in human history. And
Agreed.
I think that AI is e- already everywhere and is going to be inserting itself into our lives in ways that are handy and uncomfortable at the same time. And so, one of my big passions is helping people maintain their human slowness. And this is just one way to do it. So,
I mean, nothing ever is going to keep you from sketching. I mean, you always can have a pad of paper and a pen. And the thing that's compelling about that is you can use it anywhere. I mean, you don't have
yeah,
to have electricity. You don't have to have, I mean, all you need is that pen and paper, and you can still express yourself. And like
yeah,
you said, something that makes you human. I think
yeah,
there's something really important about that. And I
I
think that
agree.
that's what's going to be sort of our underlying message throughout this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we've talked about some basic themes, which I know that one will be one of the main underpinnings because it underpins my work when I do the workshops. But yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about, and there's so many great fellow artists and practitioners out there who dabble in what we do, and
And
I
we can
hope
talk
that,
to.
yeah, I hope that we can get them on here and have a conversation because the more we can all support one another's work, online or sort of cross pollinating, the better off we'll be. So
Yes. So if you have questions, please put them in the comments. Maybe show topics you'd like to see. And also, we will have all of our links for socials and if you want to book travel with us in the show notes.
yeah,
So thank you so much for joining us.
thank you, everybody.
See you next month.
Bye.